welcome to City Pulse, an advocacy program brought to you by Housing TV Africa in collaboration with the Nigerian Institute of Town Planners, a distinguished urban planning association recognized in Nigeria and globally. I am Obarabi Omubo. Today we focus on a crucial issue that affects housing, economic growth and urban development, talking about the land administration in Nigeria, reforms, challenges and solutions. For many Nigerians, acquiring land is a long and complicated process, filled with bureaucratic delays, disputes and legal uncertainties. Beyond legal frameworks, there are also concerns about digitization, corruption in land allocation, and inefficiencies in our land registration system. These challenges impact everything from real estate development to business investment and even personal home ownership. How can we reform the system to make land ownership easier and more transparent? What role do urban planners and policymakers play in shaping a better future? We'll be joined by an expert to explore all these questions and more in today's discussion. Stay tuned.
Visit Housing TV Africa on YouTube and click on the subscribe button. Subscribe to Housing TV Africa to stay updated on latest happenings in Nigeria's housing sector. Follow our social media pages, like and share our posts on Facebook, Housing TV Africa, on Twitter, Housing TV Africa, Instagram, Housing TV Africa. Join the conversation and keep up with latest housing updates.
Welcome back. You're watching City Pulse on Housing TV Africa. Our guest for today is town planner Nathaniel Atebije, FNITP, immediate past president of the Nigerian Institute of Town Planners. It's an honor to have you here.
Thanks for inviting me again. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
So I wanted to just get right into it immediately. I think we can start this conversation. We need to start this conversation with the Land Use Act of 1978.
Okay.
Because it's still in active till now. So I want to ask, how has this law influenced land ownership and administration over the years? And in your opinion, should it be amended or repealed?
Okay, thank you very much. These are so many questions at a point. But I think maybe we'll unbundle them and take them one after the other. But let me, first of all, draw our attention to the fact that among the factors of production, which is land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship, the first among them, and which is the most important, is land. Why? Because land is fixed, more or less. It's fixed. That we cannot actually increase it in size. Yes, through science, through technology, we are building on seas now, but when you compare the cost of recovering land from water bodies before you build, it's awesome. It's highly unaffordable. Therefore, the land we have, we need to manage it. And let me also say that, on the surface of the earth, on the totality of the earth, almost 70-75% of it is covered by waters and all areas that are not developable. So the solid part of land that we have, which is available to humanity for development, is about 25%. Now, out of this 25%, you have some places that are so high or so deep that you cannot develop. You have deserts that is not very easy to develop because of the climatic conditions. There are also some areas that are so cold that we cannot develop. So when you discount all those, the amount of land that you have on the surface of the earth that is good for active development could be about 10%, 15%. And every day, the population of humanity is increasing. Now we are talking about over 7 billion people living on the surface of the earth. And the population is not reducing. Therefore, we must manage. We need this land to build houses. We need to make food, cultivate agricultural purposes. and so many other things that we need to do with this land. So it is important for us to manage this land, and that is where physical planning comes in. Now, I'm just taking these things from the rudiments so that we know the reason why we had the land use decree. Now, having said that, if the only way you can effectively manage a resource which you have is to plan it, anybody who is planning is thinking not just about today, but is thinking also about the future. They are thinking about the next generation. Now, they used to say that, politicians think about the next 4 years. That is their turnaround time. But those who are thinking about the next generation, those who are thinking about growth, development, really are thinking about the next generation. What are we living? And that is what you call sustainable development. You are not thinking about what you are going to have today. You are thinking about what the next generation will have. Because if the people that were here before us mismanaged this land, we won't meet it where we are. And perhaps some of us will not have been on the surface of the earth today. Fine. So, at a point, we discovered that we had various land tenure systems in various parts of Nigeria. In the north, the land was public property belonging to the people, while in the southern part of Nigeria, we had freehold, that it belongs to people, it belongs to the families, it belongs to clans, and it is not something that anybody can pounce on it. And these things were beginning to affect, development, which we needed so much and we still need. And so government, particularly for government projects, they'll have to go through the eye of the needle. Or even, foreigners who might be interested in investing in Nigeria will have to go through the eye of the needle to be able to convince the local people, the owners of the land, to be able to get land. And so the government of the day in 1978, well, it was a military regime, decided that they should enact that decree, which we call the land use decree. And that land use decree principally was aimed at harmonizing land tenure systems, making access to land easier so that development can be facilitated. So that was the reason. But again, we'll touch on that one later. 1978 till now is getting close to about, it's over 40 years. It's getting close to 50 years. And any law, the situations in 1978 are not the same as what we have today. Things have changed, technologies have changed, the tastes of people have changed, the economy has changed, and, the population itself has changed. So we must, and we cannot keep that same law without tampering with it, so that we meet the contemporary needs of the society, because we're living in a very dynamic society, So let me for now say that yes, there is need for amending the Land Use Decree or the Land Use Act, but we shall touch on that one maybe in the course of this discussion.
Okay, thank you so much for that. So I think I still needed to address the issue of how has it affected land ownership over the years since, because you mentioned that 50 years is a very long time, and so how has it affected land ownership from that time to this point?
Yes, okay. It has in a way affected land ownership because in some places it has made it a little bit easier to have access to land, particularly when it is for public interest. When it is for public interest, it is easier now that the negotiation procedure is a little bit better. Not like before that, communities, clans, and individual families, have to drag government to a level. But if it is now for public interest, it is easy. It has been made easier to acquire.
Okay.
Now, the only major issue that is there is that for you to acquire such land for development, the natural thing or the normal thing that should be done is for it to first of all be planned. And so, yes, even as it's becoming a bit easier for government to acquire plans, these plans, to acquire land, most of the places that are getting land, they are more or less inappropriate places. Why? Because many of the towns, cities, and rural areas are not planned. Now, we were discussing with somebody yesterday, and he said that, for example, this Renewed Hope Homes or Renewed Hope Housing Program,
Yeah.
the land that was given for the project in one of the states, that the thing is on the outskirts of the town. It's a little bit far away from where many other people can access them. And this is the same scenario that has repeated itself. You remember when we had the Shagari housing scheme, most of them were built at the outskirts of the town. Why? Because the towns were not planned. And because of that, they didn't know the appropriate place to put land for housing. And so, while it has been made a bit better, easier to acquire land through this process, it is also still clumsy, and it doesn't give us the right results because these places are not planned. So for it to be of good effect, for it to have the real impact that we need, it is important that these towns and cities or rural areas are first of all planned.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. So you looked at it from the area of public ownership, public land ownership. What about personal land ownership? Has it been made easier for people that want to acquire land? And the planning, personal land ownership, is it also integrated in this planning problem for this issue?
Yes, the Land Use Act covers every form of ownership. Mm-hmm. It covers every form of ownership. So it has more or less made it equitable. That is to say that everybody has access to it. Not like before that it was just in the hands of few people. Everybody now has access to it. Individuals can go, institutions can go, business people can go, and so on and so forth. Now, again, back to what I was saying, where it has become a little bit tough is because everything stops at the desk of the governor. That is the major challenge we have with the Act. Everything stops at the desk of the governor. But then if you look at the urban development policy of Nigeria, the development policy of Nigeria, we have urban areas, we have rural areas. Now, when you look at the Nigerian urban and regional planning law, it distinguishes the urban areas from the rural areas. And that is to say that there is a marriage of two categories of settlements, the urban areas and the rural areas. Now, when we allow some measure of integration between, or a little form of autonomy between the urban and the regional, it will make the process a little bit better in the sense that it is not everybody that needs land that must end up in the governor's office. Urban areas, for me, if you ask the governor to manage the urban areas, and then you allow people at the local level, particularly the local government chairman, to manage those at the rural areas, it makes the process a bit less cumbersome. It makes it less cumbersome. So what we are saying is that even if we are going to talk about any amendment, if need be, the first thing is how to integrate the authority of the rural areas with that of the urban areas. Let us differentiate between them a little. But what is basic to all of them is that before any land is allocated, it must have a plan. It must have a plan. And then, like I said, if the governor is going to manage the urban areas, there should also be a provision that there's a threshold of the amount of land that the local government officials can also manage. That is to say, maybe no local government chairman or so can give a title of anything more than 1 hectare at a time. Because any development that is of that magnitude will have to go through a deeper study of the environmental and social impact assessment. And it means that you need to involve greater experts in terms of development. So that even if it is a development in a rural area, we will not leave it completely for the local government chairman to handle, but beyond a threshold, I mean, we can determine that one as appropriate. Beyond a threshold, and depending upon the type of use also, you know, that may have to go to a higher authority. For adjudication.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. We have to take a pause here, but when we return, we'll continue this important discussion, so stay tuned.
Join us on a captivating experience through the dynamic world of town planning in Nigeria as we delve into the visionary projects and insights of top experts, witnessing the remarkable transformation of spaces into extraordinary communities. Immerse yourself in engaging discussions with leading town planning professionals as they address critical issues and offer innovative solutions to empower communities. Experience the pulse of the cities of tomorrow on City Pulse, a weekly television program presented by the National Institute of Town Planners. Gain exclusive behind-the-scenes looks and discover groundbreaking strategies shaping the urban landscape. Don't miss a beat. Showing weekly on Housing TV Africa. Star Times Channel 149.
Welcome back to City Pulse on Housing TV Africa. I still have town planner Nathaniel with me, and we're still discussing land administration in Nigeria, reforms, challenges, and solutions. We've discussed the Land Use Act, we've discussed the importance of land and how it's a important but a rare natural resources, and how population is growing and how we need to focus on managing it effectively, how planning is very essential in managing the land. Now we're moving on to, we also discussed about the documentation and registration when it comes to how everything comes to the governor's seat and how it becomes cumbersome. So one of the challenges is also issuing the certificates of occupancies, which you mentioned, that if it's more than 1 hectare of land, then it needs to be investigated. So people have issues with getting this certificate of occupancies. Can you elaborate on this challenge?
Yeah, the challenges that are related to issuance of certificate of occupancy is majorly bureaucracy. You know, it's bureaucracy. It has to go through so many tables. And also it is because quite a lot of things are still being done manually. And these manual activities can be reduced when we digitize. You know, anything that digitized and every information, you know, is into the computer system, we can easily facilitate. Now, one of the major challenges again is that in the process of this bureaucracy and the use of manual methods, there are also confusions. Now, confusions in terms of records. And that is why in some places you see that we have double allocation. Time it was when somebody, in some parts of the country, they say, look, double allocation is better than no allocation. And that is simply mischievous, very, very confusing. That two people or three or more are even holding titles to one particular piece of land. And it is conflict. It has taken the lives of people. It's as serious as that. So what should be done with the digitization process is that, we can always check and be sure. In the olden days, even when we were doing things manually, any land that is allocated, it is charted on the map of the city. When you say that this piece of land is allocated, you get the coordinates and so on and so forth. The survey division of the ministry will now go and trace it and make sure it is verged, either red or whatsoever, to say that there is already, an activity on that land. When it comes to development, you use another color that this is the level of development, and that is where we have, people who are actually handling or managing research and statistics, data management, in offices. So it is something that must be encouraged. It's something that must be continued so that, the challenges we have in terms of the bureaucracy can be reduced.
Thank you, sir. You've already answered my next question about land ownership conflict and dispute. So I'm going to move on to this question. There's also unauthorized land use when a land is for the purpose of residential purposes, but it's then changed to commercial purposes. So I want to ask, what is the consequences of this action when somebody changes a land use from residential to commercial? And I also want to ask, what enforcement measures should urban planners and government agencies put in place to ensure compliance?
When a master plan is prepared, it's just like, sewing a gown, although it's not strictly in that sense. But it is just like, it is based on information. What are the information? What are the variables? What are the demands of the people in terms of activities? They need places to work, they need places to live, they need places to recreate. These are the three major issues. And these three major issues are connected by roads. Now, the amount of road that connects two places where there are intervening opportunities, depends upon the volume of the opportunities between the two of them. And so roads are measured, the widths are measured, the speeds are determined, and the amount of land that is used for each development is calculated. Now, when you make a variation in that, so many things happen. For example, in a place that is supposed to be residential, and now somebody wants to change it to commercial. For example, in a residential place, we make provision for 2 parking spaces per family. And if you have a block of flats that, let's say you have 6 flats in a block, we expect that you have about 12 cars, make provision for 12 cars to park in such a place. And now somebody wants to come and change that place into a supermarket, that you are going to have more than 100 vehicles, in a day, more than 200 vehicles in a day. You are already stressing that environment. So it is very, very stressful. Not only that, in terms of physical space, it is stressed. In terms of pollution of the environment, it is stressed because the amount of vehicles that come into that place and the petrol they burn, the smoke that comes out, is polluting people's lives. Apart from that, the noise in that environment increases. A place that was supposed to be a serene, quiet environment turns into a noisy environment because you cannot have commercial development or commercial usage that will not attract talking. And take the driving habit of Nigerians. If somebody is driving, he's pressing his horn. Some of them even as if they want to make music with it, and all these things. So it is a very serious matter that whenever you change land use, you are changing the parameters, you are stressing the environment. People are not supposed to do that. But here, we have seen that they are doing. And there are punishments for them. In fact, the right attitude should be that it shouldn't be allowed. Because right now, government is charging them penalties. These people pay. But the money they are paying does not provide parking spaces. The money they are paying does not remedy the situation. So the only thing to do naturally, effectively, is to ensure that you don't allow change of land use. And if in the process of time, if the need is felt, it is for the planning authority to look into how are we going to change the use of this particular piece of land without touching on the convenience of the people that live in that place. In such a case, for example, in places that you have two-story blocks, you can have about, maybe within an enclave, you have about 6 of such. You can now decide that, okay, let us remodel this place. Instead of the two-story blocks, a few of them can come together, you can go higher, and then you have more space. And then you can even decide that you are going to use multi-level parking space. So quite a lot of the issues can easily, be resolved in that way. But without that, without conscious planning and making sure that the issues that will arise are addressed, if land use is changed, it's stressful to the environment and the people who are living there.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. And Town Planner Nathaniel has pointed out that conscious planning is very, very important. Talking about town planners, I want to ask, what challenges do urban planners face in managing the city?
This is a very, very big question and a very wide question. One of the most difficult to control is human beings. When you want a human being to go this way, he also wants to explore, what if I go the other way? And he doesn't want to consider your own. That is one. Okay, in terms of managing the city, let's take Abuja for example. Abuja already has a plan where land uses are defined, titles are defined. So, and each piece of land has a reason and a use that it must be put into. And before you even use the land, apart from the title that you must have, there must be approval from the control agency. Many times people apply for land, they don't even know the reason they are applying for land. When they apply for land, they don't even know why they are applying for land. They are applying for it because they think that everybody is getting land. I should also get land. And he might want to do a shop. He might want to do a commercial development. He gets land that is meant for residential. He doesn't even relate with the control agency. He goes to his architect, who might not even be conversant with how Abuja was planned and the way Abuja land should be used. And then he designs anything for him. He tells him what he wants and he designs, and then he brings it to this place for approval. In fact, before approval, sometimes before you know it, it's already on site. And when you want to control him, he says no. It brings a lot of conflict. In the process, our staff or town planners have faced a lot of challenges. Some of them have been beaten. In fact, recently something like that happened in Abuja, where along Airport Road, the staff of development control went to carry out enforcement on an illegal development. you know, I think maybe that is a discussion for another day. But to say the least is that these staff were badly beaten, maltreated, I mean, beaten. Some of them up till now, since the past 2 months, they are still receiving treatment in the hospital. They were badly beaten, detained. I mean, it is a very lawless act on the part of the military people who were involved. Let me give you this analogy, that if a policeman is wearing uniform, he is carrying the authority of Nigeria. If a soldier is wearing uniform, he is carrying the authority of Nigeria. And if he's carrying out his duty while he is in that uniform, and you molest him, you are molesting the authority of the head of state. We are insulting Nigeria. But it is not all of us that must carry uniform. You know, all of us are not supposed to carry uniform. And that is why some are called civilians, you know. But the authority that is in the uniform of a soldier, the authority that is in the uniform of a policeman, is the same authority that this man has to enforce, you know, on illegality. So, because everybody is now trying to, you know, maintain law and order. So it's one of the major challenges we have in managing Abuja. And I think it is something that must be very, very squarely addressed because of the impunity which either military men, uniformed men, and politicians, you know, take advantage of. It is not right. It is something that is condemned and is condemnable anywhere in a society.
Thank you so much for this conversation. Thank you for enlightening us from the importance of land to the challenges and even to the challenges urban town planners face in enforcing these laws, in enforcing compliance, in ensuring compliance in the people, despite the fact that it is so important for this compliance to be done, for people to comply, and they are enforcing it, they still face challenges. Thank you so much for letting us know the challenges they face. And on this note, we've come to the ending of this episode of City Pulse. We've examined the challenges in land administration, from bureaucratic inefficiencies to legal complexities, and also explored possible reforms that could make land ownership more transparent and accessible. We also discussed the challenges town planners face in enforcing and ensuring compliance with the law. We hope this conversation has provided you with a better understanding of why land administration matters and how we can work towards a more efficient system. I would like to thank our guests for the invaluable contributions, and we hope that you enjoy the show. I am Oberabi Omubo. Do not forget to follow us on all social media platforms at Housing TV Africa. Subscribe to our Housing TV Africa on YouTube, and I have to say bye for now.